So, ma'am, thanks for joining us today on Leadership Log, which is a podcast for the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center community on topics of interest. And the topic of interest today is to learn about the professional development program within the 21st Intel Squadron. So, ma'am, if you could introduce yourself and give us a little of your career background.
Okay, absolutely. I'm Major Christina Hayhurst. I'm married to an active duty Air Force spouse, Major Select Dustin Hayhurst. And currently I serve as the Assistant Director of Operations over at the 21st Intelligence Squadron. I also have 4 kiddos that are 6 years old and younger. So we have a pretty chaotic life, as you can imagine. And just to start off in the very beginning of my Air Force career, after commissioning with a degree in biochemistry, I went straight to the University of Maryland to get a master's in international security policy. So I recommend anyone with the opportunity to have the Air Force pay for you to go get your education, take it. It's definitely worthwhile. So after doing that, I then went to Goodfellow to do my intelligence training there in Texas. And after that, my first assignment in intelligence was working at Dyess Air Force Base doing unit intel support for B-1 operations. And while I was there, my husband was stationed over at Shepherd Air Force Base in pilot training. So we spent a little bit time separated just because we were both in training pipelines. It's just part of the joint spouse experience. That happens. Mm-hmm. And then we were finally able to get together at Lackland Air Force Base, where I was working in a recruiting job. So that's a special duty assignment that a lot of people haven't had the chance to do. But that was a really good experience for me just to better understand how the enlisted recruiting structure works. I had never heard of a MEPS, the Military Entrance Processing Station, until working for the recruiting squadron. So that was really eye-opening for me. And then after that, my husband and I moved over to Dayton here at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And I first started over at NASIC. And so while I was there, I worked the CENTCOM region and the Regional Analysis Squadron. So just looking at threats there and in that area of the world. And then I spent my last year there as an exec to the wing commander. And then I'm now at the 21st. I'm scheduled to PCS here in a couple of months, going to Hurlburt Air Force Base. So I don't have too much longer here in Ohio, but I very much enjoyed it. Both my husband and I have absolutely loved our experience here in Dayton, and hopefully we'll be able to come back. He is currently at AFIT getting his PhD, and he does owe teaching time. So I may be back at some point in the future.
Yeah. All right. Mm-hmm. So if you could give us a little intro, what is the 21st Intelligence Squadron? How big is the team? What's your mission? What can you tell us about it?
Yeah. So the 21st Intelligence Squadron is the only active duty acquisitions intel squadron in the Air Force. And we're also the only active duty intel squadron in AFMC. So we have the largest concentration of AC intel experience across the MIE, and our job is to make sure that the MIE being the Materiel Intelligence Enterprise. And our job is to make sure that the PEOs have as much threat information as they need to make sure that they are fielding decisive war-winning capabilities that are going to be relevant once they hit the strategic competition and that battlefield. And we also have a variety of other functions in addition to that. We're also the intelligence support to the 88th Air Base Wing. So we brief threat to the medical group, to security forces, to the Air Base Wing Commander, and many more entities across the base. We also manage the SCI, or sensitive compartmented information, the classified networks across the base. Everywhere but NASIC, they have their own security office, but anywhere else that has secret or top secret networks, we're the ones that manage that. The workstations, the users, visit requests, the SCIFs, which are the facilities that hold those networks, we manage all those requirements. And so our team is pretty broad in the expertise. So we have intelligence analysts and security professionals. And we also have our IT support, our personnelist. So a variety of different career series that we have within our squadron. Also a variety of grades. We have civilian, enlisted, and officer. So a very diverse squadron with a diverse mission set. We stay pretty busy. There's a lot of requests coming our way.
I bet so. I mean, that is a pretty broad mission. So you're looking at local threats, you're looking at international things, you're looking at the gamut pretty much. How many people on the team in there?
Yep, there's about 80 people that are on our team, and we're about 50-50 with civilian versus active duty. And something else that's interesting is our squadron has a classic associate unit with the 14th Intelligence Squadron, a reserve intelligence squadron, who also does acquisitions intel. So it's been a great partnership. We work in the same building. So as we get all these requests coming in, we often look to our 14th IS partners to help us be able to meet all those requirements.
Okay. All right. Cool. So you guys recently had a team building event that was part of a larger program. So can you tell us a little bit about what the overall purpose of the sessions were and how long has this been going on?
Yeah. So the Deliberate Professional Development Program is a very intentional initiative that our current commander started. He saw that whenever he came in, saw that as a gap that we had in our squadron. There wasn't set aside time that was intentionally focused on developing our airmen. And he really wanted to change that. One of the lines of effort that he has for his tenure here in the 21st Intelligence Squadron is to make sure that we develop empowered expert airmen. And so he set up this program to get after that specific line of effort. And so whenever I took over this program as the ADO, I wanted it to be very intentional and meet the squadron where they were at. Whenever this all kicked off in September of last year, the squadron was going through a lot of changes because at the time, there was a new construct that was being developed called the Directors of Intelligence. You may have heard that term, but there's now a Director of Intelligence that's being placed in each of the program or the PEOs. And so that enables there to be intelligence support right there, sitting right next to the program managers and the PEO. And we also have AIAs, or Acquisition Intelligence Analysts, that are also embedded within those programs. And so as we were going through that organizational change, there was a lot of question of, well, since our squadron still has people back here and not in the PEOs, how is our job different? How does that change what we do and what our vision and mission is? And so I wanted to meet our squadron at that place of organizational identity and really focusing on establishing firmly what is our identity, what is our purpose, what is our why. And there's so much research that's that you can read about in different professional development books about how important it is for your members to come into the office knowing what that unified mission is, how important that is for morale, for resiliency, to make sure that everyone is focusing on going the same direction. And so that's where we all started in September of 2021, is establishing our identity. And these ended up being a 3-month series. And so throughout that 3 months, each month we had a little bit of a different focus. The first month being just what our squadron in isolation, who we are, what's our mission, and the kind of people, the diversity of different, as I spoke about before, of different careers that we have. And then the next month, making that a little bit broader, What is our role within LCMC or AFMC or even across the Air Force? How do we coordinate with other intelligence communities like the service intelligence centers like NASIC? How do we all work together to make sure we have quality acquisition intel that we can deliver to our customers? And then we ended that series focusing on individuals, because each person has their own set of skills and experiences that they can bring to the fight every day.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to help people to really narrow down what that was for them, what their leadership voice is, and then how can we use that to get after some of the initiatives we have within our squadron to make sure that we have people placed in places that they're going to thrive, that really tailors towards what their strengths are. For example, someone that is more of a maybe nurturer or guardian, it would be really hard potentially for them to be assigned a brand new, like, pioneer, a new way of getting after a problem. That's just something they're not as comfortable with. But if it's maybe putting on a morale event, or maybe a change of command, or something that looks at something that's more traditional, but that's still important for the mission of our squadron, it'll be much more better suited for that kind of project. So it's really understanding all of those strengths that all of our members have across our squadron and seeing how we can leverage that to better serve our customers. And that's just the first series. So each of our series have built on that narrative of professional development.
Yeah. So you said, so like each quarter has a theme. And so what were those as they built along?
Yeah. So the first one was establishing our identity. So that theme was September through December. And then starting in January was the journey to empowerment. And so that ended in March. And we actually just kicked off a brand new series yesterday. So really good timing. That's called Ownership. And each of these build upon each other. And so the one that we ended with in March was the culmination of our journey to empowerment, where after looking at our identity, both the squadron and as individuals, we wanted people to then think about, how can I use that purpose and those virtues that are really innate to me and my unit? How can I use that to take care of my people, my team, my squadron, and then my community? Like, how can I apply those things in all those different contexts? So again, building upon each other. And we try to have some kind of practicum to go with that. So it's a training. It can be a presentation from the base training office, or we'll have guest speakers sometimes. And then we'll have some way to practice that. Maybe it's a flight activity or a squadron activity that we'll do together to really hone those skills that we learned in our professional development session.
Okay. And so talk a little bit more about some of these specific events that you did.
Yeah. So the one that we ended with in March was pretty awesome. So that was the culmination of our Journey to Empowerment series. And in January, we had taking care of ourselves. So looking at just fundamentals, things like eating, sleeping, moving, and how do we optimize all those things, because you need to get that right if you want to better take care of your team, which was the focus of February. And then in March, it was taking care of our community. So how do we take everything we learned, optimizing ourselves, optimizing our team, and then how do we serve the community even better? And in order to facilitate that lesson, we had Jason Womack, who is one of the instructors of the leadership development course at Air University, come and speak to us about the power of connecting. Something that he talked about was that our people today are starving for connection, yet fear connecting. And so we discussed practical ways to really get after that. How can we break apart these distractions that we have to connect with each other and really learn more about the issues or the celebrations that people have to build that better bond, to better connect with each other and our community. And so after we had that morning session with JW, we then went to a variety of different places in the Dayton area for community service projects. So one of them was the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base USO. It happened to be Pi Day. And so we partnered with the USO to deliver pies across multiple different units on base. And that was awesome. They loved it. That was very much appreciated. And a couple of other service events that we did was going to a local park and just doing park beautification there. And another thing that just really helping our local community. And then the last thing was volunteering at an organization called Hannah's Treasure, which is a children's charity. So that collects toys, clothes, books, things for kids in the local community. And so just helping out that organization with putting packages together for kids that really needed it. And so that was such a great way to not only bond with the people within our squadron that were helping out with the event, but also just people out in the community who have these needs and that we can meet them where they are to help get after those needs. Yep. And that's just the power of connection. We were able to just get that much stronger and make our community that much stronger by connecting with them in that way.
Yeah, it's service before self, right? I mean, one of our core, but it's a wonderful way to build teams,
yes.
to get and to give back to the community, to those in need. Is your organization? I would imagine, because your mission said you're probably primarily working in physical presence on base. You probably don't have a lot of telework.
That's right. Yep. Most of our time is spent in the skiff, so no windows.
Right.
And inside our facility, just because that's the only place we can access the systems we need.
Yeah. So it's interesting, because you hear people lament a lot about telework organizations that they have difficulty building teams and building that connection that you were talking about. But the reality is, even when you're physically there all the time, to build a connection, to build a camaraderie, you've got to work at it. You've got to really have kind of a focus on doing that, And so it's great that, and it's interesting that your organization, you don't just take it for granted. You're actually physically working to try and build that connection and to strengthen it.
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely right. You do have to be intentional about making those connections. And there was a memorandum that was recently put out by General Brown and Chief Bass talking about airmen's time. And in that memorandum, it speaks to the fact that we really need to understand each other and to spend time really learning and connecting with each other. Because it's true that you can be in these tight cubicles, just a few feet away from another person, and yet that person is a totally stranger. You know that you probably work on similar stuff, maybe looking at similar threats in our case, but do you know about how their morning was, how their family is? What are some goals they're working on? Are there things that maybe they're working on that you are too? And you can partner together and support each other in that journey. And we just don't do that. And yet it's so critical. There are so many people that feel isolated, yet they're surrounded by so many people. And how can we overcome that? How can we make sure that all of our employees come in knowing that they're part of a team that loves them, that cares about them, and that wants them to be successful? And we see that as an integral part of our professional development program too. That's part of just being a professional, is understanding that about each other.
Yeah.
And being intentional about it.
Right. So can you tell us about some things that you've got coming up in the future?
Yes. So we just started a new series this month, and it's called Ownership. And so our focus for ownership is looking at everything we've learned, starting from our purpose, our identity, then how we can then live in light of that purpose as we take care of ourselves, our team, and our community. And now we're looking into how do we make that a habitual part of who we are? How can we wake up and make, instead of a New Year's resolution, a new day's resolution? What am I going to do today to make sure that my actions are in line with my virtues and my vision and my purpose? How do I make sure I have good goals, good habits? And whenever I overcome or whenever I face challenges, how can I make sure I'm resilient and stick to my protocol, even whenever it gets hard, whenever there are things that will set me back? How can I use that to actually strengthen me and to push that much further into my goal? So that's the focus for our ownership series. So some of the things that we have going on for this series is really focusing on daily habits and daily goals. And so we have everyone in the squadron we just have one goal that everyone has that they really want to focus on for between now and April until the end of our series in June. So you have about 12 weeks instead of 12 months, which can be really long for your New Year's goal. Let's hone that down a little bit. Let's just do 12 weeks. And that's much more manageable for you to really get at those micro goals and those atomic habits. There's a lot of resources and books and articles, TED Talks that we provide for every professional development session to include this series that really gets after how you can do that. And so along with helping people track those goals and supporting each other, if people are comfortable with it, we encourage people to be public about that goal so that other people in the squadron, if they have resources or encouragement to provide those people, that they do that. Because that's part of connection is sharing that, sharing both the struggle and the celebration. Yeah. All that is important for building cohesion across an organization. So we have that going on. We also, for next month, we're going to be thinking about how can we still press into our goals and habits when it gets hard. And to do that, we have a guest speaker coming in, Dr. Sunderman, who is a master resiliency trainer over at Offutt Air Force Base, also a medical doctor who's focused his career on looking at post-traumatic growth. So as people go through these really traumatic experiences, how can they bounce back and be even stronger, even after they've gone through those really tough times? And there's a lot of medical research and scientific explanation of how you can do that. And so we'll have him come speak. And as a practicum of that, just to try to get people to push a little bit beyond what they think they're capable of doing, make it a little more challenging. We have a squadron hike/ruck that we'll have for the whole unit to go out to one of the local trails. And we were also going to have like people pack, instead of weights, pack some canned foods or things that you can donate to food pantry afterwards. So get some community donations out of that, just to serve, again, taking care of the community, service before self, but also part of our resiliency challenge. So just things like that, where we will have a speaker come in and then some kind of practicum to really get after those skills that we'll learn. And
Sounds
so
really,
that's the plan.
yeah, sounds fun.
hmm
So that pretty much brings us to the end of our time. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about or anything that you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I am very fortunate to be a part of an organization that does take professional development so seriously because it is important. It's very easy for people to just come into their office, do their work, leave, and just day by day. And you just wonder how much of that a professional tool set are they developing by doing that? You can do that a little bit, but if you can get after it very intentionally and very targeted, then it can be so much more powerful, and you can see just this really dramatic growth in your professional workforce whenever you have that kind of program. And so I'm just so honored and so excited to be a part of it. It's been a really, really awesome opportunity.
Yeah, it's really something that that you take aside to develop like this is really going to pay
hmm
dividends in the long run.
Yes.
All right. Well, hey, thanks very much for joining us today on Leadership Log and helping us understand a little bit more about the 21st Intel Squadron's professional development program. It sounds like a lot of fun and sounds like it could be a model for a lot of other organizations looking to get after the same troubles.
Yes. Yep. I agree.
All right. Well, thanks very much.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mhm.